Springfield's Talk 104.1 and a good Monday morning, friends. Sunny, windy, a high of 85. Oh, it's going to be a warm one today, that is for sure. We are at Monday. Friday, we are going to have a happy hour at Retro Metro, so you can get prepared for that. We'd love for you to come out and join us. They're a nice, just sort of casual, relaxing event. We get to hang out, chat with one another, talk with one another. Those of you who come by and have breakfast on Fridays know that, of course, we're doing the show at Scramblers, but I don't really get to interact with you that much because I'm doing the show. So we do happy hour at Retro Metro every so often. We'll be doing it this Friday, and it's an opportunity for me to get to actually converse with you should you so choose. You, of course, don't have to. You can just have some dinner if you'd like, or some drinks if you'd like. That is 4 to 6, but it's come and go as you please. It's not a get there at 4, you have to leave at 6 sort of situation. And I always recommend that if you are going to want to actually have a sit-down dinner, maybe quieter, away from the buzz of the happy hour itself, make a reservation for 6:30, and then you'll have a table reserved, and in the lead up to that, you can hang out with us. See how it all works out. The former president of the United States, Donald Trump, announcing that he's going to go to New York, and he will be arrested. There is a judge that is trying to prevent him from speaking to the American people after this, according to reports. It was made known by Trump World that after the arrest takes place, that he was going to address the nation, and they're doing whatever they can to prevent that from happening. And I'm sure their thoughts behind it is, well, no one should benefit politically from something like this. Unless, of course, you're, I don't know, Joe Biden, and you are planning on running for re-election, then you should definitely benefit from Trump's arrest, which, of course, is much of the plan. There is an interesting piece regarding the pattern of those who are constantly and have constantly attempted to take Trump down, and part of the MO is secrecy. The Washington Examiner has a piece, Indictment Secrecy Repeats Pattern of Past Efforts Targeting Trump, but I thought we'd go through it a bit later because in the moment that they're occurring, you recognize it, but as time goes on, we forget that there's a pattern here, and there has been a pattern in everything about the way, not just going after Trump, but the way they go after Trump is contrary to everything that made this country better than other countries. And we have turned into a country of show trials. We have turned into a country of the political opposition being accused of things by people that we never know who they are. You have secret whistleblowers. And so there is, and this indictment itself has not even been released. We still don't know. This is what happens in countries that aren't the United States up until the Democrats have unleashed their fury over the last several years. And it is almost as if they got a playbook on how to run a country like a dictatorship, the Cliff Notes version. And they are checking off all of the boxes, and one of those is do everything in secret. Make sure that the accused has no way to counter the accusations because they aren't allowed to see the evidence against them. They are not allowed to know whom the accusers are for the purposes of cross-examination and defending oneself. I think Nancy Pelosi put a beautiful bow on their tyrannical package last week when she noted, well, Trump has the right to prove his innocence, which, of course, runs completely contrary to our form of justice as it's supposed to be in this country, where you are innocent until the government proves you guilty, not the other way around. Unless, of course, once again, you are a Republican or you are a Trump supporter. This is part of the dual justice system. To further that point, here we're going to get Jason Reimer with the news. You'd be amazed how many Americans don't realize that left-wing insurrectionists stormed the Tennessee Capitol last week. Stormed the Capitol. Physical altercations with law enforcement. Doing all of the things that we were told on January 6th made you not only an insurrectionist, but a greater danger to this country than anything we've ever faced. But see, the difference is the insurrectionists at the Tennessee Capitol, well, they're left-wingers. So they're righteous, you see. Jason Reimer, he's got our latest news update. Ooh, upending the race for sure. Asa Hutchinson. First alert forecast, sunny, windy today, high of 85. 65 and clear tonight, mostly sunny. Tomorrow with a 40% chance of showers and storms, a high of 85. Showers and storms tomorrow night, 49. And then cooler on Wednesday, though sunny, with a high of only 59. This week, barring any unforeseen weather circumstances, I will be doing another upgrade. I won't be doing another upgrade to my home. I've chosen to do another upgrade to my home. That's Greene County garage doors. I've learned a lot about garage doors thought it was pretty much one size fits all in terms of quality. Learned that's not the case. And advanced technology as well. You know, they have this feature that you can now get that allows, and I haven't utilized it yet because I don't have it installed yet, but it allows for, let's say you have porch pirates that frequent your area and you are hesitant to have Amazon drop packages off on your front door. You can, with the systems they have now, they can get these like temporary codes where they can open your garage door, put it inside the garage. It's filmed automatically, the whole thing. So you see it happen. You have it for record purposes, and then they're able to close the garage again. And so for folks that have a lot of deliveries and you're in an area where there's a lot of drive-through traffic and you're susceptible to that sort of thing, that's the sort of technology that you can get with Greene County garage doors. Couple of reviews. One, Cal, Jeremy did an amazing job at my home. Fast service, very affordable. I would recommend Greene County garage doors without any hesitation. I got Andrea saying, our garage door broke the day before Thanksgiving. One quick call to these guys. It was fixed less than 5 hours later. The lowest price we were quoted. Very fast, friendly service. I'd recommend them to anyone who would definitely use them again if we ever have any more issues. And, of course, to upgrade your garage to better fit your home. And it's true, Jeremy, the owner, which you'll most likely interact with if you have any sort of work done, you'll find he's fantastic people. That's Greene County Garage Doors. You can find them under Nick's endorsements, ksgf.com. Left-wing insurrectionists storm Tennessee Capitol. DOJ is silent. Well, I wonder why that would be. It's almost as if there is this unwritten rule that if you are a left-winger, and you are attacking people on the right, it's A-OK. Avita Duffy Alfonso writes, a mob of anti-Second Amendment activists stormed the Tennessee Capitol on Thursday, demanding restrictions on Americans' right to bear arms following the Nashville killing of 6 Christians, 3 of whom were children, at the hands of a transgender-identifying shooter. Video footage shows the leftist assailants shoving state troopers, taking over the floor of the Tennessee General Assembly and screaming at state lawmakers through a bullhorn. I wonder what would have happened, what the reaction would have been if one of the state troopers, who wasn't in immediate danger, pulled out a firearm, shot and killed an unarmed woman. I wonder what the reaction would be to that. The piece continues, by left-wing standards, the riot in the Tennessee Capitol is an insurrection and a dangerous affront to democracy. Oddly enough, however, Democrats and the corporate media have dubbed the attack, quote, peaceful, and labeled the insurrectionists as mere protesters. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice, which for over 2 years has been persecuting those who demonstrated at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, has so far said nothing about the Tennessee insurrection. Will the Tennessee insurrectionists be thrown in jail for 2 years and denied due process? Will the FBI begin labeling mainstream liberals as terrorists, as former FBI Director Andrew McCabe did to conservatives following January 6th? Will there be a months-long show trial where political opportunists smear the protesters while hiding exculpatory surveillance footage from the public and defendants' lawyers? Will March 30th go down as one of the worst days in American history, comparable to Pearl Harbor, 9/11, and the Civil War? It's doubtful. The Democrats' corporate press and DOJ's wildly disparate reactions to the U.S. Capitol and the Tennessee Capitol insurrectionists are emblematic of our nation's two-tiered justice system. In 2020, Black Lives Matter rioters torched American cities. The property damage and lives lost were far greater than the summer of 2020, or on the summer of 2020, than on January 6, yet BLM rioters were lionized. Some even received bail from funds raised by Vice President Kamala Harris herself. More recently, Tennessean Chester Chet Gallagher had his home raided by the FBI after he orchestrated a peaceful pro-life demonstration in the hallway outside of an abortion clinic. Gallagher and 7 other pro-life activists are currently facing federal charges courtesy of Biden's DOJ. Yet many pro-abortion vandals and terrorists who spent months defacing and firebombing dozens of pro-life pregnancy centers and churches following the overturning of Roe v. Wade have been let off scot-free. Compass Care Pregnancy Services, a Buffalo, New York pro-life pregnancy center, provided local police and FBI with surveillance footage from the night of a firebombing attack on its building. After Compass Care realized the FBI and local police weren't going to make arrests, it asked for its footage back. Law enforcement refused, claiming that giving the tapes back to their rightful owners may spark right-wing violence. Notably, the pro-abortion terrorist group Jane's Revenge openly took responsibility for the firebombing, but to this day there have been no arrests made related to that attack. Then, just this week, former President Donald Trump was indicted on a reported 30-plus charges courtesy of George Soros-funded New York District Attorney Alvin Bragg. And while leftists recite their talking points that no one is above the law, the prosecutor refuses to crack down on his state's rampant crime problem while he and other Democrats continue their pattern of treating Trump as if he's below the law. The insurrection at the Tennessee Capitol confirms yet again that there is no longer equal justice in America. The media sympathized with the anti-Christian killer, not the murdered children, and the DOJ has not labeled the Nashville shooting a hate crime. With good reason, an increasing number of conservatives and Christians no longer feel safe or equally protected under the law in their own country. Now, there are a number of aspects of this, examples that are cited that are ongoing. They are part of a pattern. It is remarkable to me the vast difference in attention that 6 dead Christians get versus any other group in this country. I think I noted this last week. I'm still seeing, as watching different programs on a number of different networks, and there are these PSAs running about stop hate crimes against Jewish people, which is all fine and good. Clearly, there should be no hate crimes against anyone. But it's as if 6 Christians were never shot up. It's as if no one pre-planned to go into a church that doubled as a school to kill as many Christians as possible. It's like it never even happened. In fact, on Friday, NPR had a story, get this, about how the trans movement is concerned that the shooting would further escalate hate against them. Now, I don't know, this is just me. In the context of that shooting and the rhetoric around it about how Christians are anti-trans, that conservatives are carrying out some sort of genocide against the trans community, in that context, you have a trans individual seek out those very people, shooting them, killing them, 6 total, 3 of which are children. And it's not Christians that should be worried about an escalation of hate towards them. No. No, that's silliness. There's no focus on the Christian community being targeted because of their beliefs. But instead, in this case, it's the trans community that's worried that there will be a backlash because Christians were slaughtered. Does that seem like the concern here is on the wrong group of people? You look around and it's as if it didn't happen. It's almost as if they find Christians to be totally irrelevant in our society. You can have you look at the shooter several years ago in Florida that had a sexual addiction and blamed partially massage parlors for being accessible. And so he goes into one and he shoots the place up. And a number of the individuals were Asians. There were also, I know, at least one white person, maybe two that were killed in that. But that, of course, began an entire campaign from the media, from the Democrats, portraying it as if it was a targeting specifically of Asians, which it was not. And you had all these PSAs running on television. You had these moments of silence. You had all of these hashtags. But here, again, when it's Christians, it's like it's irrelevant, other than noting that, well, you know, maybe they had it coming. It is sadly laughable to claim that there is not a anti-Christian bias in this country that has gotten to the point now where you can have an incident occur, as occurred at the hands of this shooter, targeting this Christian school, and everyone acts as if it's no big, like it didn't even happen. Other than in the context of trying to ban guns. But in terms of the target, in terms of the Christians, in terms of any fears that maybe the Christian community should rightfully have because of the rhetoric against Christians regarding the trans community, silence. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. All right, over at ksgf.com, we have a chance for you to win an ultimate Ozarks date night. Oh, partnering with Wonders of Wildlife, Dogwood Canyon, the Ozark Mill at Finley Farms, sending you to some of your favorite spots in the 417. Register at ksgf.com. or on the app for your chance to win that prize package. It's got things from all of those different venues. And again, that is at ksgf.com. In a demonstration that Democrats fully embrace the two-tier justice system, the double standard in this country, the Wyoming House Democrat minority leader posted a meme of a woman using an AK-47 to protect transgender people. This was this past Saturday, not before the shooting, after the shooting. Almost as if to send the message, keep up the good work. Let's get a traffic update. Don't forget, A1 Custom Car Care for all of your car care needs, whether it's some catastrophic issue, maybe you broke down on the side of the road and you're like, oh no, where am I going to tow it? A1 Custom Car Care. 3 area locations. Perhaps you just need an oil change, or maybe your check engine light has been on for some time and you keep trying to ignore it. Don't ignore it. Find out what it is. And I would caution you that while a lot of the big box stores lure you in with the promise of doing some sort of free check, it is not anywhere close to the same level of an actual diagnostics test that they do at A1 Custom Car Care. Instead of just finding the symptom and identifying the symptom, actually getting to the source of the problem. A1 Custom Car Care for all of your car care needs. The first alert forecast. Sunny, windy, a high of 85 today. Mostly clear tonight, 65 for a low. Mostly sunny, 40% chance of showers and storms tomorrow with a high of 85. Showers and storms tomorrow night down to 49. And then Wednesday, mostly sunny, a high of 59. Wyoming House Minority Whip Carly Provenza, Democrat, posted a meme of a grandma using an AK-47 to protect transgender people on Saturday, less than a week after a 28-year-old transgender person went into a Christian school and shot 6 people dead. The meme shows a grandma holding an AK-47 with text that says, Antifa says, get it? It's Antifa, F-A, Antifa. Antifa says, protect trans folks against fascists and bigots. See, that's what you are if you're a Christian. This is what people should be doing. This is the Wyoming House Minority Whip for the Democrats. An elected Democrat putting out a meme promoting killing those that question the transgender movement, calling them fascists and bigots. Breitbart News reported that Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs' press secretary Jocelyn Berry sent a tweet with a message a message similar to this one. Berry's tweet focused on pointing guns at transphobes. She would have to resign her position 2 days later. It is remarkable how unapologetic and open they are. Think back to the days of Republicans getting criticized because they used words like target. Or we're going to get in there and fight like hell. Oh, you're promoting violence. Or we're going to take them out of office. What do you mean take them out? That sounds like you're promoting killing them. There was a campaign ad, it may have been a Sarah Palin campaign ad, and it talked about the different races that Republicans were targeting across the country, and it had little targets, and she's promoting killing. Meanwhile, Democrats are flat out promoting the shooting and killing of people. I know that is a difficult thing to wrap one's mind around, but I would, because I'm sure Democrats will, no, that's not what's happening. No, that's not. They're not promoting the killing of critics. That's not what's happening at all. Well, I would ask, what does it look like then? What does it look like? If tweeting out, pushing out to all of your followers political cartoons of people with guns, telling them to go after the fascists, to go after the bigots, which of course, translation in their language, Christians, conservatives. If that isn't signaling people to go out and murder Republicans, murder Christians, then tell me what does. What does that look like if that isn't it? The lack of and here's what may happen. They may get painted into a corner where she has to step down from her position as minority whip, but they do that just to make it go away so that they can continue to paint Republicans as the problem. They can continue to paint Christians as the bigots. It's the irony of their bigotry. I mean, it's just so profound. And other than just Trump supporters or conservative Republicans, I don't know of just any targeting, specific targeting, any demonization to this degree that any groups are subject to, other than, again, Christians, Trump supporters. Are we really supposed to be surprised that their supporters are taking action? I mean, let's be honest about this. And this really all started. This is rhetoric that the left has used for some time. And frankly, I think that they are so accustomed to using the rhetoric. I don't even know if they realize that some of their supporters believe it. Bernie Sanders campaign guy that went with a list of Republicans trying to kill as many as he possibly could, saying this is for health care. I don't know that there could be a starker example of somebody who really truly believed he was doing something righteous because he believed the rhetoric of people like Bernie Sanders. Republicans were going to destroy the planet. Republicans were going to take away Medicare. Oh, by the way, speaking of that, the Biden administration announced the end of last week that they are going to start slashing Medicare Plus. We'll get to that story. But they believe these things. When Kamala Harris and other Democrats were running around accusing Border Patrol agents of being Nazis and being members of the Klan. And then, amazingly, we see an uptick of attacks on ICE facilities. I wonder why that might be. You have people on the left, and elected Democrats that are putting out visual propaganda, encouraging, and again, some may take issue with the word encouraging. I don't know what else it's doing when these memes that they put out flat out show a person with an AK-47 noting protect trans folks against fascists and bigots. But according to NPR, it's the trans community that should be concerned about their safety, not those that are being targeted by the left through such propaganda. I believe the mistake so many Americans have made is this instinctual belief that at some point the Democrats would go too far and they would recalibrate. That there would be somebody in their ranks that would send out a meme or call for violence, and that there would be such a backlash that they would renounce that and they think, all right, we've got to stop being so crazy and radical here. We've got to quit this. Or that one of their followers is going to go out and murder a bunch of people. And they're like, uh-oh, we better pull back. If anything, just as a human being, maybe stop fostering this hostile environment towards political opposition. The mistake was believing that that was going to happen, that there would be reasonable people within the Democrat Party that would say this has got to stop. Or in the media. And I fear what tomorrow brings or the next day brings. You look at how much more brazen they have gotten from this year compared to the year prior, and compared to the year prior, and compared to the year prior. Remember how appalled we were when caught on tape, wasn't meant to be released, but it was, Obama talking about how so many Americans were bitter clingers, clinging to God and guns, bitter. And it was just, this is a guy that's president or running for president of the United States who would classify millions and millions and millions of Americans that way. How frightening. And Hillary Clinton comes along, deplorables. You got Joe Biden calling Republicans semi-fascist. Now you have Democrat lawmakers pushing out memes talking about killing transphobes, which, of course, they consider anyone who is opposed to a 12-year-old girl getting a lap dance at a drag show. What does it look like a year from now? Calling for violence, rounding up Trump supporters, some of which have been in jail for 2 years without due process. The clear political persecution of a former president, and not just that, but clearly the biggest challenge to the current administration in terms of upcoming elections. Where do they go from here? It frightens me to imagine. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Hey everyone, it's Sarah Myers.
Hey, that's me. Well, I've got more home renovations on the way, and that is all thanks to my friends over at Beatles Property Maintenance. Now, I had the Beatles Property Maintenance team come out on Friday, and I had a list of just kind of honey-do list items that I haven't had time to get done, and the Beatles Property Maintenance team, they are going to take care of those items for me. So if you are looking for a great company that does a variety of home repairs and maintenance, highly recommend Beatles Property Maintenance. They do everything from those big name jobs like mold remediation, crawl space repairs, vapor barriers, but they also can do a ton of different things all at once. So if you are looking to upgrade your lighting, maybe you're wanting a bathroom remodel, or maybe you are wanting deck repairs, those are all things that Beatles Property Maintenance can do for you as well. Now, maybe there was something that I didn't list and you're thinking, oh, I don't know if they do this. Give them a call. They're super friendly. They can come out, take a look at it, and they'll let you know up front if they can or cannot do that work for you. Now, you can find all of the contact information for Beatles Property Maintenance housed at ksgf.com under the Sarah's Endorsements tab.
I was sharing earlier a take on the Federalist regarding the two-tier justice system, the double standard we have here. It's just almost insulting when you hear Democrats saying no one's above the law. I just want to, because they know what they're saying. It's a taunt. It is a taunt because it is clear that they only apply the law to themselves if it benefits them. And that's what has become of our laws and of our justice system. It is a tool of the Democrat Party. It noted the difference in approach to pro-life individuals versus the pro-abortion individuals, and how you had Jane's Revenge fully openly saying, hey, we're going to start carrying out these terrorist attacks, and just a wave of them across the country. And you have a Justice Department that is more interested in rounding up people who pray outside abortion clinics. One of the examples that was cited was Compass Care Pregnancy Center. Now, what's interesting is around the same time that Federalist piece was released, there actually have been a few arrests of the pro-abortion terrorists. But listen to this, because this is how it works. And it is, again, our justice system being used for political purposes and theater. 4 individuals were charged in connection with attacks on pro-life centers last week, which Compass Care Pregnancy Service CEO, Reverend Jim Harden, said is an indictment on the FBI because they, or for previously choosing not to pursue the cases. Thomas More Society Executive Vice President and Head of Litigation Peter Breen told the Daily Caller News Foundation, we're glad to see the federal government taking the matter of widespread attacks on pregnancy centers and churches seriously. Excuse me, it's taken way too long for the FBI and the federal government to get serious about it. Compass Care Pregnancy Services CEO Reverend Jim Harden said, the 4 individuals charged this past week in connection with attacks on pregnancy clinics are an indictment on the FBI. Pro-life advocates have been critical of the Department of Justice for failing to prosecute those responsible for a wave of attacks on pregnancy centers following the overturn of Roe v. Wade, while simultaneously using the freedom of access to clinic entrances, known as the FACE Act, to target pro-life activists. This week, however, 4 individuals were charged in connection with attacks on pro-life centers, 2 in Florida, 1 in Wisconsin, and another in New York. At least 83 pro-life centers and groups have been attacked since the Dobbs decision leak. The DOJ brought its first charges against 2 individuals in Florida in January and brought no more until this week. In Florida, Gabriella Oropesa and Honorella River were charged under the FACE Act for targeting and vandalizing pregnancy centers in Florida, painting threats like, if abortions aren't safe, neither are you, your time is up, we're coming for you, and we are everywhere. One man in Wisconsin was arrested Tuesday in connection with a May 8th, 2022 firebombing of the Wisconsin Family Action Office. Earlier in the week, a New York woman was arrested for a March 16th, 2023 vandalism at Compass Care Pregnancy Services in Amherst, New York, the same center that was firebombed back in June of 2022. Harden said the This particular arrest, while I'm happy to see it, represents the indictment on the FBI. We've been saying for months and months that they know who's doing this, and they're choosing not to make arrests. So here's what's going on. It's like, why now? Why all of this? Out of the 83 attacks that have occurred, they found a few random individuals to arrest. After over 300 days, no individual has been identified in connection with the June firebombing that caused $400,000 in damages. Yet, within 10 days of Compass Care notifying the FBI of the vandalism, local police made an arrest on less evidence than they had for the previous attack. In January, Compass Care, in partnership with the Thomas More Society, launched a private investigation on their own into violence against pro-life pregnancy centers. Hardin said the recent arrests are oddly coincidental because the private investigators were also looking into both Wisconsin and New York. Hardin believes pressure from the private investigation, along with House and Senate Judiciary Committee hearings and the media, prompted the federal government to take action to bolster their reputation. So, in other words, what they've noticed here is this odd coincidence. And that is the fact that they have hired private investigators to gather information and essentially do the job that the Department of Justice should be doing. But see, the Department of Justice all this time, we just don't know where these people are. I mean, it's amazing how they can track down Trump supporters all over this country. But individuals that openly, premeditatedly, talked about carrying out acts of terrorism against abortion clinics, they just cannot find these people anywhere. Can't find them anywhere. Until you had Compass Care hire private investigators that began finding evidence very quickly. I mean, they had videotape, at least of one of these instances, and then all of a sudden, those very instances that were being investigated by the private investigator hired by Compass Care, the Department of Justice, man, they found those people lickety-split. It's almost as if they knew where these individuals were. They knew the private investigator was going to be able to find them, so they had to go and arrest them themselves in order to prevent the embarrassment of having them turned over to them, which, of course, would just further pull the mask off the fact that they're too busy planning raids on the homes or at the homes of Christians who pray outside abortion clinics, as opposed to going after people that actually carry out domestic terrorist attacks. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. The Springfield Cardinal 2023 season is here, and you can win tickets. Text the word Cardinals, plural, to the American Transmissions Talk and Text line, which is 417-447-KSGF. Text the word Cardinals. I should have tested this beforehand. Have you tested it yet?
No, but
I know.
will.
Okay, yeah, go ahead and test that because I know sometimes it isn't quite ready. Most of the time it is, but every so often those things occur. We like to test it ahead of time, and I got to talking here before I thought about it. And so,
Yep, it works.
yeah, okay, excellent. And these are, I guess it says register to win the Springfield Cardinal opening day giveaway. And we've got the details at ksgf.com. You know something interesting I've noticed? There is a tremendous amount of buzz about the John Wick 4 movie. I've seen the first one, thought it was great, but I mean, it's just absolute rave reviews. And the reason I find it interesting is because in the context of all of the recent shootings, once upon a time, people on the left, they like to blame movies, they like to blame violence in movies. They wanted all of these specific designations because of gun violence. And here we have all of this praise being heaped universally from everything I've seen on this John Wick 4 movie, which is, in fact, I think the dialogue is, there's hardly any dialogue. Most of it's total violence. And there never seems to be any discussion about the connection of glorifying gun violence versus actual gun violence. And I just think that's interesting. Springfield's Talk 1041. I am Nick Reed. Welcome to the show. Streaming live video. Our Facebook page is 1041 Nick Reed. Then on YouTube, you can find us there. That live video stream sponsored by Springfield Wraps, who also designed the KSGF studio. American Transmissions talk and text line 447-KSGF. We're going to chat here just a couple of moments with Darren Chappell in the studio with us. Let's go ahead. I want to jump over to Jason Ryman now. Well, now let's give him a couple minutes because I know sometimes he working on a couple of our other stations. Just how are you? How have things been going?
I'm great. Everything's going good.
That's wonderful. I know I see you oftentimes Friday out at Scramblers. But
yeah,
it's very busy, very hectic.
It is. It's and that's good. I think it's great that so many people show up, and
it's a happening place on Friday mornings.
It is. And they have some of the best pancakes anywhere. As if sitting around with a bunch of cool people is not enough. They've got great pancakes.
Well, it doesn't hurt. Throw pancakes in there. Sarah she gets oatmeal.
Yep.
Boring.
Leave me alone.
Are you serious?
I'm a little old lady. I like oatmeal.
She got
and
married.
my wheat toast.
She got married, had a kid, and just aged.
Start wearing
years.
one of those big Afghans over her shoulders, and maybe do some knitting while she's over there.
Comfortable shoes.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep. I go to bed before 8, so I'm really living the dream here.
Wow.
Hey, that's that. You know what that is? That's happiness.
It is.
That's
You're
what
right.
that
I
is.
am
That
very
is
happy.
Happiness.
Well, I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
I wish you didn't have to suffer oatmeal on Fridays, but okay.
It's good. I love oatmeal.
She does mix things in with it.
Every once in a while.
Okay.
That doesn't matter to him. He's like, there's nothing you can do. Nothing.
Okay, well, I will get
I like
pancakes.
oatmeal, too. I like
yes,
oatmeal,
I
too.
will get
Unless
pancakes for you.
Unless you're mixing in pancakes and then take out the oatmeal.
All right, we're get a look at the weather. It's going to be 85 today and windy day also. We'll look at that first alert forecast coming up here in just a moment. Jason Ryman now with news. First alert forecast sponsored by Navant Employee Benefits that work. Sunny, windy, high of 85 today, 65 tonight. Tomorrow, a 40% chance of showers and storms with a high of 85. Mostly sunny Wednesday, 59. I'm going to get a traffic update here and then just about 90 seconds from there. Darren Chappell. Darren Chabel with us. Hey, and incidentally, thank you for all the times you fill in. I
Oh, no, it's my
rarely
pleasure.
get a chance to on air. Thank you. You are one of our go-tos. We've got a number of them, and so it's always great.
No, I always have a blast every time. And
People, they sometimes say to me, will you ever run for office? And I always say, no, because I get to live in the world of how things should be, whereas you or other lawmakers have to live in the world of how things are, if that makes sense.
you know, the frustrating thing about it, I love doing the radio because you can talk about something and you can flesh it out. And the only thing that limits your ability to do so is the 3 hours.
Right.
And you know what? If you don't finish, you come back tomorrow.
Yeah, it's great.
It's not that big of a deal. On the floor, you know, at most I get 15 minutes. And there's so many people who are running for this office or that office, and what they're doing is they'll say things that are just outrageous because they know it's being recorded, and then they have their legislative assistant clip that part out. So it's completely out of context, and they're just trying to be as incendiary in their views as they can possibly be so they can have a clip to run in their next election cycle. And that's fine, I guess. I mean, you know, if you want to act a fool, that's your business. But it's not conducive to government.
What is your assessment? If you were to guess, in the time that you've been up there, the percentage of lawmakers that are really there seriously, if that makes sense, really seriously debating the issues, not necessarily in agreement with you, versus those that are doing what you just mentioned there, that are it's a career, it's just a job, and they aren't serious debaters, serious lawmakers. What do you think that breakdown would be?
You know, I'd say there's probably 90% are there for a good reason in their mind. How's that?
Okay.
Now, it's a much smaller percentage of people who are there, who question whether something is constitutionally appropriate.
Oh.
I mean, it's a tiny. I got somebody mad at me because they wanted to put an emergency clause on a bill. So an emergency clause, that law goes into effect as soon as the governor signs it, and not on August 28th. When you realize that, you know, we're not even going to be done with this until middle of May. It has to go through the House, it has to go through the Senate. Now it's the middle of May, and it's going to go to the governor's desk. And if it's something really crazy, he might sign it by the 1st of June. So you're talking 3 months earlier. Well, the Constitution says that an emergency clause is only acceptable if it has to do with public health and safety. You know, so if we had a legitimate health crisis, you do something that had an emergency clause so it goes into effect right now rather than waiting a few months. And this wasn't that. And so, you know, I supported the bill, but the emergency clause wasn't constitutional, and so I voted no. And they're like, well, why'd you vote no? And I said, hey, send me something constitutional, and I'm all in, guys. You know, I don't know what to tell you. We have a lot of people that are worried about their issue, you know, and not really thinking about the big picture. And that's one of my biggest frustrations.
So what have you been working on?
Well, I've been working on a lot of things. My real property tax legislation is, people are upset. Not upset, they're worried about what it will do to the local government and school districts, but it doesn't do anything to them. Only in government is slowing down the increase the same as cutting.
Right, slashing.
Yeah, you know, I'm just draconian because I said, how about if we just don't ratchet it up quite so quickly? But the biggest thing that I've been working on is the budget. I wanted to be on the budget committee so bad I could taste it. In the beginning, they asked us, which committees would you like to be on? They said, give us 5.
It's like enrolling in school.
It is. It is exactly like that. if I could have done it without just being perceived as a total smart aleck, I would have written budget down 5 times. Because that's what I've done.
Right.
I taught public budgeting and finance at Missouri State at the graduate level, and then I was a city manager, and that's all I've done. You know, it's not all I've done, but it's a big chunk of what I've done. And I wanted it so badly, and of course I didn't get it, and it was frustrating. And I don't begrudge anybody who's on budget, but I wanted to be on there too. And there's one legislator, she does a fantastic job. I'm glad she's on there. But she's 24. I mean, I've literally done this longer than she's been alive, and I'm not on there, you know? So, anyway, I got stuck on a sub-appropriations committee for education. And sub-approps committees, I think we met 4 times, and then that's it. And all it is kind of the introduction of the budget into the system, and there wasn't really that much oversight or anything. So, but I took it seriously. I took it extraordinarily seriously, and I had DESE, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, brought us their budget. It was 1,400 pages long, one day, and all they did was said, okay, here's this line. This is how much we've spent in the past. This is how much we need now. Are there any questions? Well, there's no time.
Right.
So we go through that, and at the end of the deal, they said, are there any questions? And I said, I'd like to see the fund balances. And she said, well, which lines? And I said, well, all of them.
Right.
And she said, in the last book, because there's 4 books of this, she said, in the last book, I said, no, ma'am, I want to see all the funds everywhere for everything. Well, her entire expression dropped because of the workload I was putting on them, I'm sure. And so anyway, it took a long time to get that information and to get, you know, I asked for a meeting, and I didn't get a meeting with them until the Thursday before the Tuesday that we actually had the budget presented on the House floor. So, I mean, it's just dragging their feet, and I'm sure they had other things to do, but I was working because I saw that budget, and you know, in the state budget, there's more zeros involved, but it is still a budget. It's it's the same thing I've done all these years. And I wasn't sure what was wrong, but I knew what I was seeing wasn't right. And I started digging into it. And I thought, well, maybe at first casual glance, I thought, well, maybe there's $30-40 million worth of over appropriation here. And then I got to digging into it, and you know, it got up to $324 million. And then after I was working with the House Appropriations staff and we really buckled down and dug into it, it's actually over $1.2 billion that they're over appropriated. So over appropriation, what that means is in order for any department to spend a penny, 2 things have to be true. First, there has to be cash available, and they have to have authority from the legislature to spend it. Until those 2 things are in place, they can't spend a penny. But sometimes, a lot of times, this is when we work with the national government, which I wish we wouldn't do, but this is when this happens. They'll plan on getting X amount of dollars from a grant, ask the legislature for the authority to spend that much, and then the grant comes in for less money. So they have cash, but less than they thought, and they've been appropriated for more than they got. That's an over appropriation. Sometimes the grant is available, but they are not spending it, and they're just carrying it from year to year to year.
Rollover.
Yeah, and showing it as revenue every single year, but then below revenue line, they also take it out as unexpended appropriation, and they carry that over to the next year. And what it does is it just artificially inflates their budget. And their budget is artificially inflated by 13% now. So I'm going through this and, you know, why are we doing this? Why are we appropriating this much money? Because every dollar that's allocated to X is no longer available to Y.
Right.
You see? So budgets are financial documents. They're planning documents, but they're also documents of prioritization. Because once the money's gone, it's gone, and there's nothing we can do about that. So we have to make sure that the highest priorities are being funded. So if a department is taking this appropriation with no intention of spending it whatsoever, it inflates their budget, inflates the budget of the state as a whole, but it also limits what we can do elsewhere. So what they've done is they've taken this money that has been appropriated to them, and I mean for years, and not spent it. Now, to my mind, that's bad budgeting. It's not transparent, and it makes it seem as though they are manipulating the system for their own benefit. You say, well, how could that be? In Jefferson City, the bigger your budget, the more power you have. That's just the way it is. These departments, they vie for power, they vie for resources, they vie for the governor's attention and the legislature's attention, and the bigger their budget, the more power they have. And so by artificially inflating their budget, what they've done is they've tried to increase their control in the Capitol. So I'm looking at all this, and it's $1.2 billion. Right. We just passed a $54 billion budget. And, you know, we're sitting here, it's only 2%, roughly, but it's one department.
Right.
You know, all of the departments to one degree or another are using this kind of voodoo economics accounting.
So they're hoarding it. Is that...
They're hoarding the authority. There's not a bank account that has the cash sitting in it collecting interest. They're hoarding the authority. And if you retract that authority, you're attacked for cutting education.
Oh, of course.
We're not talking about real money. We're talking about authority to spend real money.
So where would that come from if they all of a sudden they're like, we're going to spend that $1.2 billion?
From the national government. And that's part of the problem, is that those yahoos in D.C. have just been throwing money at the departments and at the state. And that was one of the things that they told me when I was questioning this. They said, well, you can't worry about it because here in a year, 18 months or so, these grants will be over and then they'll fall off the budget and it's no big deal. Well, it's a big deal right now, first of all. And secondarily, what in the world makes you think Washington, D.C. isn't going to continue to be stupid?
Well, and if this has been happening year after year, then why would it cease to? I mean, why would that not continue?
And so that's also some of the pushback that I got. Some individuals were telling me, well, they've always done it this way. The only reason it's so obvious now is because we have so much money stuck in the system by the feds. And I told them, I said, I mean no disrespect when I say this, but we've always done it this way is the dumbest reason to do anything, especially in government.
It's right there next to everyone else is doing it this way.
Yeah, and that is exactly why the other departments are doing this, because they got to get theirs.
Yeah.
So the whole premise is founded upon the idea that the money isn't real. Well, that mentality and the idea that we've got $1.2 billion stuck back here we can always use later, there's absolutely no reason whatsoever to have any kind of fiscal responsibility. Why worry about spending when you got this big load of cash back here available to you?
We're talking with Darren Chappell. I'm going to ask some very elementary questions. You mentioned the $1.2 billion. It's not, quote, sitting somewhere in an account. Is it at the Fed level, or if again Missouri says, well, we want that 1.2 million, do they just print it? Because that's of course the advantage the federal government has. They can just print more money, borrow more money.
Yeah, and essentially that's the case. So how it works is, DESE goes to the LEA, which is the local educational authority, the school district, and they say, look, you have this available to be spent. And all you got to do is spend the money and send us the receipts, and we'll forward it to the feds for you. They'll reimburse us. We'll reimburse you, and so the money gets spent. Well, when I asked them, and this is when people lost their ever-loving minds on Twitter and everything, is because I said this. But when I asked DESE, and I was talking to the chief budget officer, so this is not, I wasn't talking to the janitor, you know what I mean? When I asked DESE, Why are you not spending this
Right,
money?
right.
She told me in front of witnesses that the local school districts have a historically high access to funding at this point. And I said that was very well spoken. That was very diplomatic. And later on, she said of that, and including the higher education, the colleges and universities, they have more money than they know what to do with.
I think most people listening right now hear that, and their thought is that's the opposite message we always hear. We always hear how there's not enough money for the schools. There's not enough money for this. There's not in the concept of education. Yet here, what you're saying is that their own admission is, well, we have more than we know what to do with.
That's what Desi told me.
Yeah.
Now, I can't say that that's
Right,
true
but
because I've not done a deep dive on the LEAs and on Desi. I haven't done that because that's not my responsibility. I'm looking at the state budget. But when I'm asking, why are you carrying this? They said, well, we can't spend it all. Well, then I asked her, then why are we getting the lungs kicked out of us in the legislature for defunding education and not properly funding education? And she didn't really have a good answer for that. But, you know, there are school districts that are struggling, without doubt. And there are school districts that have a general reserve, which they should have, somewhere around 25-30%. And for most schools, that's about right, you know. And what that means is that for their annual operating budget, let's say it's $100,000, they would have $25,000 in the bank, so that if something went all bad, they've got the money. But there are districts in this state that have way over 100% reserve, their entire annual budget.
Well, and you know what this seems to be something that occurs with any sort of governing municipality, is the idea of having that emergency fund, if you will. But when it's a real big emergency, the federal government seems to always come in anyway. It's, we declared an emergency, and so it seems as if oftentimes the instances in which those dollars are meant to be used, they don't ever have to be used for that.
Yeah, you know, for cities, so the reason why you carry it is like Joplin.
Right.
Tornado comes in, wipes out your main drag, and now you're not collecting tax revenue because nobody can buy anything. You still have to pay the cops. You still have to pay the cleanup staff in the fire departments. So you got to have some kind of operational reserve.
We're gonna get a traffic update. We got Darren Chappell. Actually, we'll take 60 seconds. Then traffic. We'll have an update on the weather as well, and then continue on. And if anybody have any questions, you can text them in on the American Transmissions Talk and Text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. First alert forecast sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvement. Sunny, windy today, high of 85, 65 for low tonight. Mostly sunny with a 40% chance of showers and storms Tuesday, a high of 85, and showers and storms continuing Tuesday night down to 49, 59 for the mostly sunny high on Wednesday. Aller Building Company, all of your brand new home building needs. Oftentimes you got to move, you're upsizing, you're downsizing, whatever it may be, but you don't want to do any of the remodeling. Aller Building Company, they're the folks for you. They've got some new developments through the area, and you go to their showroom floor, and within a couple of hours, if you're a quick decision maker, you can have that entire feel of the home, what makes the house a home, the fixtures and the colors and the cabinets all chosen. Do it all from that one location, no remodeling necessary. Aller Building Company, Oleer. We're talking with Darren Chappell this morning, and you, in your area of expertise, looking at budget, specifically education, DESE, notice there's like $1.2 billion that they have access to. They're kind of not using it.
Right.
And I know for most people who don't have the mind and experience that you have, it's very confusing. You can get lost in it. I would recommend people go back and listen if you missed any of what we've talked about so far. But the question I want to ask, and I don't know if this may be an overly broad question, what you have found, is that just categorized as a bad way to do things, or is it scandalous? Does that make sense? Are these nefarious motives that have been kept hidden all this time because people just rubber stamp it as lawmakers? Is this the sort of thing that people should be removed for, or is this just more of what makes government inefficient?
I think the answer to all of that is probably yes.
Okay.
It's some of everything. I think, it's a logical fallacy to imply motivation to someone unless they expressly avow it for themselves. So I don't want to imply that anybody's doing this for malicious intent. But it's either malicious intent, sloppiness, or ignorance. And I don't know which one makes you feel better about the situation, but that's where we're at. And frankly, I think that, and my call is for us to have an outside audit of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and frankly, I'd like to see it done on all the departments.
Many people would say, well, in Missouri, there's a position, state auditor.
Yeah, that position, though, is largely designed to focus on counties, school districts, municipalities when there's a petition-driven audit request. And it's not really designed for what I'm talking about. Furthermore, if you have an outside agency come in, the politics is alleviated. It's not Republican versus Democrat. But also, the last auditor, she slashed the department, which would normally, I would say, is a good thing. But
when it's about accountability.
Yeah.
Like the one area that you could argue maybe we shouldn't slash in government, the accountability arm.
So he really is, Scott Fitzpatrick really is under the gun as far as staff is concerned with it. I don't know that he has time right this second. He's trying to rebuild. But even if he did, I think the idea of having an outside third party, completely non-biased to Missouri politics, to come in and do a financial and a performance audit. I've been through a performance audit. It's like being in a public colonoscopy. It is no fun. But you find out what's going on. So I'm not ascribing impure motivations, but it is bad budgeting. So public budgeting, if it's done correctly, it rests on a three-legged stool. You have appropriations, writing the checks, and that's what we do. You also have auditing. Did the money actually get spent, and did it get spent on what we told them they could spend it on? And see, we're not doing that. But then we also have to have budget oversight and review. So go back and look at past years. Did the money we spent do what you promised us it would do? And what are the metrics to show us that it's important to continue to do that? Again, the budget is a document of prioritization. we never go back and say, hey, how'd that work out? And they tell us, well, you have to give us the money so that we can keep doing the job, and we're struggling to do the job, so we need more money. What if you're the problem?
Yeah.
So DESE's budget is right around $10 billion. We send to the local districts right around $5 billion. I think the local districts need more of the money, and DESE needs less. DESE has over 1,800 employees. That department, in my estimation, really ought to be nothing more than a repository of data, just data, and an accounting system to pass through funds to the local districts. But they could have 200, maybe 250 employees for the whole state and be able to do what DESE was originally designed to do. Part of the problem that the local districts have is they're hung up by DESE. DESE requires that they follow the MSIP, that's MSIP, MSIP 6 program. That's why these teachers are having to teach the subject matters that they're being forced to teach. And frankly, why they're not able to teach reading, writing, and arithmetic is because they're focused on this other garbage that DESE compels them to teach because of the Department of Education in Washington, D.C. And this whole, a lot of this woke garbage that's coming down to our schools, it's because of DESE. Furthermore, the MAP testing. And see, MAP is a proprietary testing system, so we're not allowed to see what's on the test. We're not allowed to see the results of the test for individual students. We're not allowed to see a lot of this stuff. And so DESE is proscribed by law from telling school districts you must use this curriculum. But what they do is they say you have to teach this material. And the MAP test, we know what's on it, you don't. And we're just going to suggest to you, you'll do better if you use this curriculum. So they're not compelling it because they can't. They're just making it to where you don't have much choice.
Who are these people that run DESE?
They are appointed, the executive staff are appointed by the governor.
Do they all have education backgrounds?
Almost exclusively.
So it's sort of an echo chamber.
But when I went to school way back in the dark ages, we used the Iowa basic battery exam, and crying out loud, you either knew your stuff or you didn't. And if you were that bad, they'd hold you back and make you do fourth grade over again. I have no personal experience with that, but I know it happened. We don't do that anymore. We just had our school report cards come out, and I think I saw that, 46% of kids in Springfield are reading at level, and 32% are at level at mathematics. And we had the pandemic, but the pandemic didn't cause that. Government's reaction to the pandemic is what shut the schools down and shut down society. I mean, government has been the problem consistently throughout. So DESE, to my mind, is a large part of the problem that we have with education at the local level. And instead of just giving them money carte blanche like we've been doing for years, I think we need to re-examine the foundation formula, get more money into the hands of the people that are actually utilizing it, and get DESE off their backs. Now, once a school district has the funding they need directly from the state, DESE's off their backs, we've disconnected to one degree or another from the Department of Education. All right, guys, now you're on the hook. You all are the ones making the decisions. You are the ones that have to answer to your local voters. There are no more excuses. And then if Columbia wants to take kids to a drag show, Martin Luther King memorial breakfast, and the parents, okay, but that's on them. Right now, there are districts that are very, very liberal and progressive in their attitudes, and they want to do what they're doing, but they use DESE as a shield. We can't help it. They make us. Well, let's stop that. And then whatever the school districts do, it's on them.
Yeah, they're responsible for it. Darren Chappell with us. We're going to get a quick break and then a couple of questions on the American Transmissions Talk and Text line. In mere moments, Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. The American Transmissions talk and text line is 447-KSGF. We're talking about how you really wanted to be on the budget committee. You were not put on the budget committee, asking if you were ever even asked about your qualifications.
I never shut up about my qualifications. I really did. I petitioned so hard they kind of got sick of hearing about it. But so part of the reason why I did this, they stuck me on this sub-approps for education. That's why I started with DESE. I'm not anti-education in any way. But that's where they put me, so that's where I started. I mean, we got to do MoDOT, we got to do all of them. But when they put me on there, I was like, "Oh, you guys are gonna."
Yeah, you thought you were putting baby in a corner.
Yeah, watch this. And so I was able to claw back $15.7 million out of this year's budget because of this over appropriation, and it aggravated me to no end. Because it's 1.2 billion, and you guys, you only let me have 15.7 million, and it was because it was such a short period of time. They had to vet to prove that what I said was correct. Now,
Sure.
I'm right,
and
they know I'm right, but there wasn't time to lock it down. So they only gave me 15.7, and so I said, fine, I'll introduce this piddly amendment to this budget, but I want some extra time to talk about the problem. So they gave me extra time on the floor to talk about it. And that's why Twitter blew up and said, "Oh, this guy's against education and he hates kids and all that." Whatever.
Did you find that the response from other lawmakers, were they? Do you have any that were like, "Man, we did not know this. We need to get to the bottom of it," or did they largely ignore it?
No, it's kind of split. There are some that just didn't understand what I was talking about because finance is not their everybody has their area, so that's fine. In fact, that's great because there's things I don't know about. Lots of things. So some just didn't understand it. Some got real excited and said, "Man, I've been waiting. I knew something wasn't right. And now thank you so much for finding this." I did have one guy, and he's a friend. He's not a bad guy at all, but he's been on budget for a while. And when I first started talking about this guy came up to me and he said, "You just don't understand how budgets work." And he didn't know. He didn't know me at the time very well. And I said, "Hey, what'd you do for a living before you came up here?" He said, "Well, I was whatever for 27 years." And I said, "Wow, I've never done that." And he just kind of smiled and nodded. And I said, "Kind of a moron would I be if I told you how to be one of those?" And he just looked at me and smiled, shook his head, and walked off. Don't tell me my business. I mean, I ran to uphold the Constitution and to try and get the budget under control. And I'd knock on doors and people would say, "Well, okay, that's great. We appreciate that. But what can one guy really do?" Well, this is what one guy can really do. If you get in there and you dig in and you find out what's going on and you know what in the world you're talking about, this is what one guy can really do. I ran to do this, and like I told you off air, I'm the rarest of all politicians because I'm actually doing what I said I was going to do. And it frustrates some people. There are a couple who are somewhat embarrassed that a freshman found it in the first half of the first term. I'd been there. When I first discovered this, I'd been there 4 weeks. And there were some that were a little embarrassed.
Right.
But they weren't looking for it. They didn't know to look for it because they hadn't done that for 20 years plus. And
it never really seems to me as if there is any sort of oversight. And we see it locally. It happens everywhere. The folks that you are generally supposed to be keeping a watchful eye on instead are considered the quote experts. And so, we don't question. They're the experts.
Right.
They're the ones who know what they need, and that's why you don't need all this time to look through 1,400 pages of budget, and because they're here to just give you the cliff notes and explain. No, this is why we need it.
Right. And people really hate this when I say this, but this is a function of term limits. It really is, because people come in not understanding because they didn't do what I've done for all those years. They don't understand. By the time they start to gather the facts and understand what's going on, congratulations, you've served your 8 years. It's time for you to leave now. I'm not advocating for people to stay in there for 50, 60 years. Don't misunderstand. But I do think that the departments, they know they just have to wait us out. When they get that rare individual that actually knows what's going on, we'll just hold off for a while.
And we're talking with Darren Chappell. Years ago, I had a conversation with a lawmaker, and he told me the exact same thing.
Yeah.
In Missouri, when it comes to, I think it was Department of Natural Resources. It was one area of government that there was a bit of a battle between lawmakers and the bureaucracy, and he had told me they know they just have to wait us out because we have term limits.
Yeah.
And they know that they'll still be in those positions while we're gone.
So between the House and the Senate combined, we have about 10, maybe 12 full-time House and Senate appropriations staff. And then you've got a part-time legislature, term limited, and the vast majority of them have never seen a budget like this in their lives. Right. And then that's opposed to all the governor's staff, all the departments, and all of their staff, and all their budgeting expertise. And it's like trying to sweep the ocean back with a push broom. And the only thing I know to do is first of all, use what I've brought to the table to the best of my ability from day one, and that's what I've tried to do. When they left my office the other day at Desi, I handed them my cards, and I said, we're going to become so well acquainted over the next 8 years. And so anyway, to do that, but also I've got people now who are not budget people who've come to me asking me to teach a class over the summer on what
That's
to look
encouraging.
for. Yeah.
That's very
so
encouraging.
If I can teach people now, and then every year that the voters allow me to go back, I'll teach the new classes over and over. By the time I am termed out, there may be a culture moving forward.
Going to take another quick break and then another question on the American Transmissions Talk and Text line for Darren Chappell. I'm Nick Reed. Darren Chappell with us. Question, can you ask him about House Bill 1169, putting warning labels on our food if it has mRNA or nanotechnology.
Yeah, that bill is just now really starting to get some steam of its own. This is not my area of expertise. I have relied heavily on conversations I've had with doctors and veterinarians. We've got a veterinarian who is a no joking around expert and has testified against this kind of stuff for years and years and years, and he's telling me the hazards and dangers of this. And so I'm still learning about the process, and I don't know where the bill is in the process right now. I mean, we got 3,000 bills, and I'm really working hard on my stuff, and I don't see every bill, and some of these bills will never see the light of day. So you don't waste your energy focusing on what might be. You try to stop the stupid as it presents itself now. And I wish I had more time, but I just don't. But I would not be in favor, at first blush, I would not be in favor of allowing our food supplies to be manipulated at the DNA level like that. There is some manipulation of every food. I mean, the fact that we have different
30
breeds.
seconds.
Yeah, the fact that we have different breeds of cows.
Right.
We did that.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. But there's a difference between that and the Franken food that they're trying to put together.
Darren Chappell, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. And
I appreciate
of course,
the opportunity.
We will look forward to having you back again.
Well, I'm going to keep doing what I said I was going to do.
I believe you. You always have.
Yes,
You
sir.
always have.
Yes, sir.
We've got news coming up in 60 seconds. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Bud Light has partnered with a guy who goes by the name of Dylan Mulvaney. He dresses as sometimes even a young girl. It's creepy, and none of it seems to make sense to me. Not because it's some dude that for 365 days has claimed to be a girl. Dylan has been announced as the latest spokesperson for Bud Light in a pair of videos. The activist revealed on Saturday that the beer company sent packs of Bud Light featuring his face as a way to celebrate 365 days of girlhood. Now, this evidently at the same time is supposed to be connected to March Madness. He tweeted out, wrote on Instagram, "Happy March Madness. Just found out this had to do with sports and not just saying it's a crazy month. In celebration of this sports thing, Bud Light is giving you the chance to win $15,000. Share a video with Easy Carry Contest for a chance to win. Good luck, Bud Light partner," Mulvaney wrote on Instagram. Somehow it was determined that an appropriate or applicable spokesperson for March Madness is this TikTok star who 1 year ago decided that he was going to start dressing as a girl. The connection, I don't know. People are, of course, talking about, and maybe this is Bud Light, their whole shtick here is let's do something that's going to get us free coverage. Many people, of course, don't like it because it's just more of the nonsense. It's nauseating propaganda. This is what a lot of people don't understand. It isn't anything to do with transphobia. It's just to do with enough already. It's just exhausting at some point. Anything that gets beat into the ground over and over and over again, normal people get exhausted from it. The only people who don't are those that feel it brings attention to them, and they like to be the center of attention. They can't get enough of it. Me, 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 me. The rest of us, however, regardless of the subject matter, it doesn't even need to be anything controversial. If in place of every single tweet, poster, promotion regarding transgenderism was instead about rock climbing, people would be really tired of it. People would be like, are you serious? More promotion of rock climbing? Nothing against rock climbing. But you'd like to go 10 minutes without having people shove it in your face and tell you how wonderful it is, and anyone who's against rock climbing is a horrible person. It's just exhausting. Let people breathe for a moment. This constant need to be center of attention by certain people and certain groups, it's exhausting. So that's one reason that you have people that when Bud Light now, evidently to promote March Madness, is declaring a celebration of this guy for self-identifying as a girl for 365 days. Another reason is just the issue itself and you know, the declaration of sort of this morality police and putting this out there, and if you don't like it, that means there's something wrong with you. Thirdly, though, now I'm not a March Madness guy. I've never even sat and watched a basketball game. Other than, you know, in high school or something, you're there with your friends, but watching them on television, I know nothing of that sport other than the concept of it. I did play one season in 8th grade. I was so horrible at it, that was the end of it. So I fully acknowledge that maybe there is some sort of obvious connection to March Madness and a transgender activist that I'm unaware of. But as an outside observer, I'm having a difficult time navigating how that speaks to fans of March Madness. Hey, who knows? Maybe it will be declared to be one of the greatest promotions ever. And perhaps the entire world gets it. But for a few of us. Springfield's Talk 1041. Jason Riley, he's got our latest news update. First alert forecast, sunny, windy, a high of 85 today, clear 65 tonight, mostly sunny with a 40% chance of showers and storms tomorrow, high of 85. Showers and storms Tuesday night, 49 for a low, and mostly sunny, cooler on Wednesday, high of 59. American Transmissions, talk a text line, 447-KSGF. So Bud Light feels that they don't need the business of actual women? I mean, do they even know their demographics? Man, I don't know anymore. Some of the bandwagons that these companies get on. Here's something for some of you, depending on your age. You ready for this? This is going to be crazy. There was a time where companies simply promoted their products. I mean, that was it. They're like, hey, we make this beer. We think it's really great. You should drink it too. We think you'll enjoy it. It's just about the product. Enjoying the product. Sharing the product with people that you hang out with. Having a good time with the product. Enjoying the taste of the product. The way it makes you feel. It was about the product. Hey, here's what we sell. These are the reasons that we think that you'll like it. Or services. Can you believe that's how it actually used to be? There was not this need to turn into social messengers, to pick what you believe is to be some morally superior position and market that. It was really kind of cool. Wasn't divisive at all. What people talked about when they did talk about it was the actual product or service itself. It was a crazy world, I'm telling you. How nice would it be to go back to those days, back in the good old days where somebody had a good or service that they wanted you to buy and they just told you about it. That's it. At the same time, they cared about the bottom line. For their investors, their goal was to make sure that those who invested in the company got the best return possible. What a crazy world we once lived in. talking about companies and how they are focused, so many of them no longer seem to be about the product or service. It's not about what they want you to actually buy in terms of the offering they have, but they pick these causes that they feel make them virtuous and then market that instead. Now, when it comes to a company like Bud Light or Oreo or any of these other companies, think, all right, well, in the end, so what? If it's their product, if that's the route they want to go, so be it. If they lose people, not because of the issue itself, but just because of bad marketing, marketing that's not hitting the target. They're not actually selling their product, and when you aren't actually out there selling your product, then you are generally less likely to sell that product. And if that's what they want to do to their own company, hey, yeah. However, when this same approach is taken by an institution such as those within our U.S. military, we've got some severe problems. And there is yet again new information coming out that indicates the politicization of the military, along with the wokeness, is having devastating impact on recruitment numbers. The U.S. Armed Forces have one mission: protect our nation from foreign enemies. Our troops are as committed to that mission as ever before, but according to a bracing new report, our warriors' ability to do their job is being undermined by civilian leaders more interested in woke indoctrination and partisan politics than warfighting readiness. Again, it's the focus is wrong. Same thing with, again, back to these different companies that instead of focusing on making their product good and delivering that product and marketing that product, they go off course and they pick, something that they think makes them so virtuous and so wonderful. And anytime you focus on something other than your service or your product, it is going to diminish over time, that the quality of that product. And that is also something that applies when it comes to armed forces. The report of the National Independent Panel on Military Service and Readiness is an urgent warning about creeping politicization at the Pentagon and its corrosive impact on America's national defense. As the report details, the Biden administration's whole-of-government embrace of woke politics is becoming a dangerous distraction for servicemen and women who sign up to protect and defend, not virtue signal. The top-line statistics compiled in the report are described as jarring. Last year, the Army missed its recruiting goal by 25%. They expect this year to be even worse. The Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps began the new fiscal year in October 50% below the normal recruiting numbers. Public confidence in the military is falling precipitously, and even military families from which most recruits come are less likely to recommend military life. According to the November poll, the most common explanation includes, quote, military leadership becoming overly politicized and so-called woke practices undermining military effectiveness. Another survey found 65% of active duty servicemen and women are concerned about the politics, including the woke training programs and equity-minded reduced physical fitness standards. 65%. Troop retention rates are falling too, and for the same reasons. As the report notes, quote, the perception that non-warfighting missions are distracting senior military leadership may alienate experienced, skilled, and knowledgeable warfighters, incentivizing their early departure. It is no coincidence that the Heritage Foundation's latest annual index of U.S. military strength rated our armed forces preparedness as in the weak column. Up and down the ranks, Team Biden's DEI-focused initiatives are degrading the warrior ethos grounded in values such as courage, honor, and self-sacrifice on which military morale, respect, and success depend. Well, and all of this, frankly, is so obvious. So obvious. Which is why it is... You could not blame one for believing this was a deliberate effort to destroy our military from within. Some may call that conspiracy theory. Call it what you want. And I'm not saying that is what is going on here, but you cannot blame a person for recognizing it is so obvious. Even if you take the woke component out of it and replaced it with anything else. Replace it with arts and crafts. And you have a military that is increasingly prioritizing arts and crafts over military readiness. Guess what's going to happen? You are going to become less and less ready. And here's the other news flash. People who are interested in getting into the military for the purposes of being part of the greatest fighting force, the most effective and efficient fighting force in the world, are going to stop signing up when they learn that there is this overwhelming culture of instead focusing on arts and crafts. And the retention numbers are, of course, going to decrease as well because people who, once again, are interested in being part of an effective military fighting force look around and instead are constantly having arts and crafts shoved in their face as a priority, are not going to stick around as long. All of this is very obvious. It is so obvious. Again, you cannot help but recognize that intellectually thinking people might note that this is a deliberate effort to sabotage our military from within, deliberately making it weaker. And the most frightening aspect of this is the people who are responsible for this continue to hold their positions because they've been put in place by people who are promoting this. Instead of recognizing, gee whiz, things are getting worse. Recruitment is down. Retention is down. A majority of active members in our military do not trust the leadership. An increasing number of military families are telling their kids after generation of family being enlisted, proudly serving, they're telling their kids, don't do it. It's not what it was once before. If you are a country like China, you can only sit back and be in awe of how reckless and negligent your geopolitical enemy, the United States, is being in destroying their own military. And the frightening component to this, again, it matters not how many different studies, how much we hear people from within the military screaming about this. There's no denying it. There's no version of the numbers that say, no, these numbers are totally inaccurate. And making the willful decision to continue in this same direction. It's just like education in this country. With the exception of, we get some of these parents that do get on school boards. We've got an election coming up tomorrow, all over the place, but a big focus on Springfield. And it is, those who run things into the ground and say, I want to do more of that. And there are people that are perfectly happy supporting those individuals. And it does make one wonder, what is your point? Why are you doing this? What are you trying to accomplish? It is hard to recognize any effort that has been as damaging to our national security as what we're seeing done from within in the military, from the top. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. All right, hold on, Bill. We'll get to you on the American Transmissions Talk and Text line 447-KSGF. That's also the text line. And if you text the word Cardinals to that line, 417-447-KSGF, then that'll get you registered to win tickets to Springfield Cardinals opening day. You'll know if you did it correctly. You'll get a message back telling you you are entered. That is Cardinals, 417-447-KSGF. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, broker, owner of House Theory Realty. Oh, yes, indeed. So you got the big guns. I always recommend before you make any alterations to your home to put on the market, first visit with Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. There are a lot of things that maybe 10 years ago when you bought or sold a home were needed upgrades to improve the value of your home, and these things change over time. They evolve over time. There are certain components to your home that are just expected to be updated, and not doing so could make it a little more difficult to sell your home, but also at the same time, getting it taken care of may not add the value. So how do you make these decisions? That's why you need Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. She's going to take care of you. She's going to be totally 100% upfront and honest with you when it comes to the things that you may need to do or not do to put your home on the market. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Talking about the latest report showing that we continue to see diminished results in terms of training our military. And we have, again, recruitment is down, retention is down, and a majority of active members of the military all cite politicization at the top and wokeness at the top as reasons that they don't have a trust in the higher-ups in the military, those people that are the civilians that are calling the shots. We go to Bill on the American Transmissions Talk and Text line. Bill, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Nick. I quickly Googled a article that's dated 10/29/2013. Obama had fired 197 senior officers in 5 years. You can only imagine what happened from 13 till now. And they were, if they wouldn't pledge allegiance to transgenderism or climate change as the most significant threat, they were gone. And that's obviously gotten worse from there. You give your life up to the military. Basically, you pledge that you could be killed in combat, and nobody's going to do that if they're not confident of the senior leadership, and nobody's afraid of these skirt-wearing sissies that we have now. We need warriors.
Well, aside from in that, just even in real life scenarios and Afghanistan, the presentation that what occurred there was this brilliant success. No one gets held accountable for these things, and I have family that serves, so I can't pretend to know what it's like to be in that particular situation, but I would feel as if my readiness was not top priority and success, what they consider to be success, would be very concerning to me. But culturally speaking, you think about over time, generation after generation after generation, in the past, those who signed up and joined the military, the reasons for doing so. And overall, there was this culture that would draw different people from different backgrounds to serve in the military, and that was a love of country. There was a love of what they saw as a symbol for freedom. Now, clearly, different people would get in for different reasons, and some you're going to have to get in because they didn't know what else to do with their life, some maybe to pay for an education. But ultimately, our culture in our country was one that saw the United States as the greatest country on the planet. We saw the military as a military that was all about preserving and protecting the United States and being there as this fighting force, not just for protection, but for good throughout the world. And it was all based around goodness, the idea that we as a nation are good people. Well, look at what's being taught today. We're a horrible country. We're a country that is built on racism. There's no real redeeming value to the history of our country. And if you populate a country with people as they get older and they grow up, and you see what's being taught in the schools today, that we have a really crappy country, well, you take that entire component out of a motivating factor or the culture of a military that's serving a good country, a great country, a country that does things for moral reasons and for freedom and liberty. And while, of course, you're going to have people that will point to mistakes that we've made, and we have made mistakes as a country and within the military. But I think most people would agree that this cultural shift has occurred, and it's been driven by the left and the Democrat Party, that we are a country to be ashamed of. We have a history to be ashamed of. Bill there citing Obama, and many of us may recall the apology tour where he goes around the world apologizing for all the horrible things we've done. Well, you can certainly see why. Or I suppose ask the question, why would somebody want to serve a military for a country that is so morally awful? Why would people sign up to defend a country that's racist, that's homophobic, that has 90% of the wealth within 0.01% of the and all of these things that constantly you listen to one political party in particular rail against the United States regarding? And so, aside from the pushing of a certain morality and a lifestyle, you also have this vacuum that's being created for it to fill. And that is what once upon a time was a love of country, to where now, well, you're probably white supremacist if you love the country. And then, of course, you are pitting people within the military against one another based on color, based on LGBTQ status. Everything that we hear regarding what is going on in our military today is division, 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 division. Pitting this group against that group over there, telling this group here that this group over there is bad. It is a toxic soup that they have been stewing for some time. And anytime you create that sort of environment, of course you are going to have diminished returns. Of course you are going to have less people wanting to sign up. And those who do aren't all there for one unified cultural reason. It is clearly a recipe for destruction. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. When you have home loan needs, you need only one place. iwantagreathomeloan.com. No more of that regular business hours, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, barring, of course, any sort of holidays and times are Eastern, so do that conversion and so forth. When you're dealing with the Carricker team, whether it's Don, Alex, Anthony Carricker, or some of the others that help assist in their efforts. You have direct lines. You have direct numbers 7 days a week till 9 o'clock at night. And if ever any of the folks you're trying to get a hold of, any questions you may have, anything that pops up in your panic, like, oh my gosh, we accidentally did this and didn't mean to. Is this going to throw a wrench in things? Give them a call, and if they're with someone else or in church or whatever it may be, they'll get back with you as soon as they can. That's the level of service you get with iwantagreathomeloan.com. Because you do. Let's go to Willard. Harold, welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just wanted to point out that there's kind of a silver lining to this dark cloud of our military being destroyed, in a sense, because there's going to come a time, and I don't know when it's going to be or how long it's going to take, but the American people are going to say that's enough, and they're going to stand up. When we stand up, the federal government is not going to be able to depend upon county sheriffs and city police to control us. They're going to be dependent on the military, which they've gutted and filled with a bunch of pansies. And guess where those people are going to be at that they kicked out for being real soldiers? They're going to be fighting right beside me and you, buddy.
Well, you know, it's interesting. You talk about the usage of military against the American people, or perhaps an attempt to one day, and that is another component to this, is the indoctrination of people in the military about the dangers of domestic terrorists, many of which they label as former military. We've seen these reports come out from our government that things to watch out for, in God we trust, and people that focus on the Constitution. And there is already this attempt to reformulate in the minds of those who serve this country that the real danger to the country aren't foreign adversaries, but it's domestic terrorists right here. You know, parents who show up at school board meetings, people that go to church. And I don't know what, nothing surprises me any longer. After we saw on January 6th an unarmed veteran that was no physical danger to a police officer, and that police officer shot her dead and was totally cleared and no outrage at all. In fact, her death gets completely dismissed, and instead they lie about other deaths that they claim occurred in the Capitol that day. To me, that sent a message that if there are people protesting and they are of the right, they are Trump supporters, they aren't part of the establishment, even if they don't have a weapon, shoot them dead. You have nothing to worry about. And this injection into the military that people who love the Constitution, people who believe in God we trust, are people to be watched as potential domestic terrorists. I mean, there is a lot going on that is very, very, very dangerous. And when push comes to shove, I don't know what would happen if that day does come. I don't know. Report, Manhattan judges put a gag order on Donald Trump. I mean, it's as if someone said, here is a playbook on how to become a dictatorship. It's not enough that they're going to arrest the guy. If you had been told this when he got elected president, that Democrats would become so totalitarian, they will arrest him. They won't even unseal the indictment, so he can't even defend himself publicly or see what's in it. And on top of that, a judge is going to consider a gag order, so he can't even talk about this to the American people. What more can be done to make us that banana republic? What more can be done to mimic a third world country? One of the many people who have been vocal in opposition to this political persecution is a political opposition to Trump and on the same party, but also vying for the nomination, and that is Vivek Ramaswamy. And he, of course, like so many others, have noted that all of this, it's a dark day for the country, noting that it undermines public trust in our electoral system and justice system. It's un-American for the ruling party to use police power to arrest its political rivals. Principles go beyond partisanship. Let the American people decide who governs. He made an interesting comparison, however. Now, all of this, we're told, is because of, quote, hush money. Money that Donald Trump paid to keep an affair from going public. This is what we're told all of this is about. Hush money. Vivek Ramaswamy noted in a tweet, quote, if you want to talk about hush money for sexual indiscretions by politicians, consider this. In the past 25 years, the Office of Congressional Workplace Rights has paid a staggering $18.2 million taxpayer dollars to settle 291 cases of sexual harassment and other misconduct committed by members of Congress. Now, maybe we should learn about that to greater detail. This is where you know the swamp is there. You know it's vile. You know these people are disgusting and beyond the pale. But even what they're accusing Trump of, being the base sin here, is it about a consensual relationship, not sexual harassment, not sexual assault, but a consensual relationship. Meanwhile, some of these same politicians in Congress are responsible for hush money being paid out so that actual victims of sexual assault or sexual harassment keep their mouths shut. Over the past 25 years, $18.2 million. And by the way, those are your dollars coming out of your paycheck. Trump's not accused of using tax dollars. You see how clear this is? How rank it is? And how indicative it is that there are many people in positions of power that are so craven and so depraved of humanity and morality that they have no problem standing up and applauding what's happening in this country today. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. This is your friendly reminder to clean out your gutters if you haven't done so today. And, if you haven't cleaned them out in a long time, that can really cause some issues with your roof. It can kind of backflow. It can mess up your shingles, and it can cause some of that yellow leaking and some actual leaking inside of your home. So to not make you afraid, if you are experiencing some of those issues, highly recommend my friends over at the Pyramid Roofing Company for all of your roofing needs. The Pyramid Roofing team, they are top-notch individuals. They will come out, they will do a free estimate for you, take tons of photos and videos, and show you exactly what is going on with your roof. Maybe you don't need a whole new roof, maybe you need just a roof repair, or maybe new gutters. Either way, the Pyramid Roofing Company, they can help you out with all of those roofing needs. You can find the contact information for Josh in the Pyramid Roofing Company. That's all going to be housed at ksgf.com under the Sarah's Endorsements tab.
Joe Biden moves to cut Medicare Advantage. This, again, is an illustration of all of our Democratic friends out there that falsely accuse Republicans of doing something like this. And that's why they should not be in power. They hate people who are in need. They hate the elderly. Yet it's the Democrats. Once again, this isn't the first time that there's been a slash to Medicaid or Medicare. Obamacare did the same thing. But if you're a Democrat, you can do that, get away with it, because your supporters will fall right in line, lockstep. Because, see, they don't really care about the issues. The issues are irrelevant to them. That's the only way that the Biden administration can get away with this, because the supporters will stand silent and allow it to happen. The Biden administration announced that it will cut Medicare Advantage. This after the president has frequently claimed that Republicans are the ones who want to slash Medicare. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services announced last week that the Biden administration would cut Medicare Advantage by 1.12% in 2024. Bloomberg reporting the agency will also phase in controversial changes that determine payments based on the severity of patients' health problems. That policy will take effect over 3 years instead of 1 year after the proposal drew fierce criticism from the industry. The changes add up to a near-term victory for the industry, which had argued that the Biden administration went too far in its initial proposal to slash the program. But the policy may mark the start of a period of slower growth for a market that has doubled in size in the last decade, driving growth and profits at major insurers. Biden has proposed these cuts to Medicare Advantage as he's frequently accused Republicans of being the ones who actually want to do such a thing. Now, I wonder if we're going to begin to see cartoons of Biden pushing elderly people off the cliff in a wheelchair. This will be ignored. And if it does come up, we'll hear a rational and reasonable explanation as to why this is actually a good thing. And the good little Democrats out there will support it all the way. News in 60 seconds. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.